when we visit around here or anywhere that I go, generally there are questions that are asked of a religious nature because we are at the homes of the people and we're asking them about their faith. And you might be surprised of the questions that we get. They generally aren't questions that you're very concerned about, but they seem to be very concerned about. We live in a time where things are very polarizing. Politics are scary. A war is looming. And most people want to talk to me about the end of the world. And recently, since Israel has been undergoing all of these problems that they're having, most people are asking me what is Israel's role in the end of the world and when is the kingdom coming? And Tommy will tell you, he goes with me, I'm not exaggerating. We have so many questions about these things. And if you are evangelizing and talking to people about the Bible, I'm sure they have questions for you. And I just want you to be ready to answer some of these. Now, I am not going to preach a sermon tonight about the man of sin. I preached that 3 times here, and I think I'm going to retire that one. I think you all have it. The last few times I said that I preach it, Scott, he always remembered. He said, yes, you did, but the rest of you didn't. Immediately after I was done, you came up and said, oh, yeah, you preached that one. So just trust me, I preached it. But I am going to talk about the man of sin a little bit tonight, because when you get into the Bible and people want to know about the Antichrist, this is generally who they're talking about. So if someone asks you, who is the Antichrist, you could say immediately, I don't know. All right? As a matter of fact, there isn't any one Antichrist in the Bible. The word Antichrist is used 4 times in the New Testament, and it's all in John's writings, and it happens to be in his letters, and in particular, 1 John, with one reference in 2 John. In 1 John chapter 2 and verse 18, matter of fact, I'll just go back there and read these very quickly. I was going to put them on the board, but I'm afraid if I do that, I'll lose my chart here, and I don't want to touch it. So 1 John 2:18 simply says, little children, it is the last time, and as ye have heard that Antichrist shall come, even now are there many Antichrists, whereby we know that it is the last time. Now this to me is curious. This is the first time that we read of the word Antichrist in the Bible. But his audience has been hearing a lot about it. So we know you've heard of the Antichrist and that they're coming the last time. So we get 2 answers here. Number 1, the people were waiting on Antichrist. And number 2, they were waiting on the last time. And John answers both. There is not just one Antichrist. And by the way, they were in the last times. Okay? This is the 1st century. So in the 1st century, they considered it to be the last time. Now, a comment that I get all the time when I'm out visiting is this: don't you think we're living in the last days? Now, I don't engage on this hardly at all. I just simply answer, I am certain that we are living in the last days. And they'll do this. Yeah, me too, man, me too. Now, the way they interpret what I say, I know is not the way that I mean it to be interpreted. But they're right. We are living in the last times. They expect there to be signs of the end of time, and once you see these signs, the end is very near. John wanted the end of time. He said this, even so, come quickly, Lord Jesus. And like I told you, Marley said to me this morning, maybe Jesus will come back today. Well, maybe he will. To me, this would be a wonderful thing to see Jesus come back. But when he comes back, heaven awaits. And there is no sign out there that Jesus come back. I got to thinking what would cause Marley to believe that. And so I thought about it in a very theological way, which I'm sure he was doing in his little mind. Well, there were clouds this morning, and Jesus said, as you see me go, I will come again. So maybe he saw that and put it together. But the fact of the matter is, he's simply hoping that Jesus would come back again because he wants to meet him. And I can't help but think to myself, I feel exactly the same way. So this is the first sign of the Antichrist, or the first reference to the Antichrist, and it also gives us a definition of the last times. The last times were the times that John was living in. The author of the book of Hebrews echoes this when he says, God, who at sundry times and in divers manners spake in times past unto the fathers through the prophets, but hath in these last days spoken unto us, or spoken to us through his Son. And so the author of the book of Hebrews concurs with John that we are living in the last time, and the last time began in the first century. So the second reference then to Antichrist is found in 1 John chapter 2 and verse 22. Who is a liar but he that denieth that Jesus is the Christ? He is the Antichrist, that denieth the Father and the Son. Now we're given the definition of what an Antichrist truly is. First of all, John tells us that there are Antichrists and that these are the last times. And then he says, here's what an Antichrist is. An Antichrist is one that denies that Jesus, denies Jesus and the Father. Okay? Now the next reference is found in 1 John 4 and verse 3. Here then he says, and every spirit that confesses not that Jesus Christ comes in the flesh is not of God, and this is that spirit of Antichrist, whereof you have heard that it should come, and even now already is in the world. And so he tells us then the Antichrist is a spiritual entity. Okay? You have heard that the spirit of Antichrist will come, and the spirit comes when you see someone denying that Jesus came in the flesh. Now, were there any people that were living during the time of John that denied Jesus' humanity? We know them as the Gnostics. There were all different types of philosophies that existed during the time of Christ. We think of the great Greek philosophies, the Stoicism, the Epicureanism. You guys know what Epicureanism is? Have you ever heard that word? Sometimes I always tell the girls, we're going to have Christmas dinner at this time, and it is going to be an Epicurean delight. Why do I say that? Well, the Epicureans, they indulged in all that was worldly and enjoyed these things. When I was in the country of Jordan and went to a town called Joash, there are ancient Roman ruins there, and there's a particular room that has nothing but holes in the plaster, and this room was for people when they were done eating as much as they could. They would go in this room and they would evacuate whatever was in their body. Go ahead, say it, Tommy. Vomit. As a matter of fact, I try not to say that in this company, but it's known as the vomitorium. As a matter of fact, that's what Tommy and I call a certain restaurant around here. But these Epicureans lived this way. And so you had very spiritual philosophies, you had very physical philosophies, and the Gnostics find themselves interpreting the Bible, and they interpret it between, and they make divisions between spiritual and physical, which we do also. And by the way, I'm simplifying this for the sake of time. But John says this is the spirit of Antichrist. And by the way, this spirit of Antichrist must have been prophesied by one of our early disciples, it seems. Now, that shouldn't bother us. There were a lot of early disciples that prophesied. As a matter of fact, in the book of Acts, we read about a prophet named Agabus who makes a prophecy concerning Jesus, concerning Paul and Jerusalem, and what will happen to him. And so there were prophets at that time. Now then, if you go to 2 John, chapter 1 and verse 7, the Bible says this, for many deceivers are entered into the world who confess not that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh. This is a deceiver and an antichrist. Again, in his second epistle, he speaks of these things. So then, there is no one particular antichrist that John points to, all right? And I've read so many books about who is going to be the antichrist. You must realize many of your religious friends believe the Antichrist is alive right now, okay? And that he's probably living in America, and that he's probably of Semitic descent, okay? And they can go through the list because they're trying to figure out who he is. We got one of the cards out of the card box back there, and somebody left some money in it. So immediately Laura started using her mind and sleuthing. She said, well, it's a woman's handwriting, so it's none of the men. And I said, well, the men are married to those women. Well, good point. So you start sleuthing, right? And that's what people are doing right now. They're trying to find out who it is or who it's going to be. And this Antichrist will disrupt the world by causing everybody to come to his side. Now, when Trump won overwhelmingly, I'm not kidding, that night on one of the programs, I heard them talking about the Antichrist and how he had deceived the entire world. And guess who they were saying is the Antichrist, which is unusual. That's Republican and Democrat. It doesn't matter who becomes president. There's always somebody out there saying he is the Antichrist. But there is no one Antichrist. In the Bible, when people point to an Antichrist, they point to these two people, the man of sin and the wild beast of the book of Revelation. Okay? Now, do you know much about the wild beast of the book of Revelation? Or for that matter, do you know much about the man of sin? If you're going to talk to people about religion and they're going to ask you these questions, I think you just need to have a little bit of knowledge on who it is they're talking about, okay? By the way, the Bible doesn't give a name for either one of these two people, okay? But you remember we talked about the decoder that we used to get in our cereal? You remember that decoder? I only got one cereal that had sugar in it. That happened to be the gift. They were pretty bad. They ran that gift for about 10 years. So you get that decoder out and you find out who maybe they're talking about. But there is a comparison. And if I can get my thing here to work, we might be able to figure it out. Okay, so we look at this comparison of the man of sin and the wild beast of the book of Revelation. And we find first, the man of sin is mentioned in 1 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 3. And so if you want to, you can open your Bible there, and then you'll open it to the book of Revelation. And you can just put your finger in it. And I'm going to look at the time. Boy, I tell you what, my time's about up. Good thing this isn't a very long sermon. 1 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 3. 2 Thessalonians. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 3. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. So, if you go to Revelation, and you look at chapter 13 and verse 1, they're talking about this wild beast, and it says, upon his heads are names of blasphemy. If you go over to 17 and verse 3, he is full of names of blasphemy. And so he is, in a sense, a man of sin in both texts. In our text in 2 Thessalonians, verse 3, he is called the son of perdition. What is perdition, by the way? Destruction, okay? The Bible talks about people going to perdition. They're talking about a final judgment that is one of destruction. Here he's called the son of perdition. In Revelation, the wild beast in chapter 17 and verse 8, he shall go into what? Perdition. And verse 11, he goeth into perdition. So does it sound like the same man so far? Well, we're not very far into it, are we? But as we go along, he is called the lawless one. It's 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 8. Here then, in Revelation 13 and verse 5, power was given unto him to do what he will. Now, not the will of the people, not the will of God, but the will that is given in his own mind. He's going to do what he wants to do. Power is given to him. He is lawless. Okay? Now then, in verse 4 of 2 Thessalonians 2, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped. Now then, in Revelation, there was given to him a mouth speaking great things, and he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God. Verse 4, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. And they worship the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? And all that dwell on the land shall what? Shall worship him. Whom the Lord shall consume. Can you all see this? Is this big enough for everybody? Verse 8. Whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. 2 Thessalonians 2 and verse 8. If you look over in 17 and verse 14, then shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, and the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet. These both were cast alive into the lake of fire, burning with brimstone. So, the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. You see here, this man is also going to be destroyed in a similar way. Notice chapter 2 and verse 9, whose coming is after the working of Satan. Oh, I can't touch that one. Here, chapter 13 and verse 2, and the dragon gave him his power. Okay? With all power and signs and lying wonders. 2 Thessalonians 2 and verse 9. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven in the sight of men. Revelation 13 and verse 13. Then I have one more. And with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish. 2 Thessalonians 2 and verse 10. And then verse 11. And for this cause God shall send them a strong delusion, that they should believe a lie. And again, here this beast, this wild beast in Revelation 13:14, he deceives them that dwell in the land by means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast. So it seems to me that whoever the man of sin is, he is very closely related, or very well is, one and the same with the wild beast of Revelation 13 and Revelation 17. Okay? And again, I would argue that they are one and the same, but I am not dogmatic in that. I simply have given you a number of, well, I've just given you a comparison, and you can see for yourself. Yeah, go ahead. No, as I said, the Bible doesn't speak of one Antichrist. But when people believe, when you're out talking to people, they believe there's going to be an Antichrist. And when you start to dig, they say, well, it's the man of sin, or it's that guy in Revelation. Usually they don't know what verse of Revelation it is, but they know it's there. Do you know what the biggest surprise people get? It's not when I say, well, it's only used 4 times in the New Testament. They don't believe me when I say the word Antichrist is not used in the book of Revelation. Have you found that to be the case, Randy? Everyone thinks that the word Antichrist is in the book of Revelation, but it's nowhere to be found. And so when they go to Revelation, this is the guy that they're talking about. It's curious to me that when I speak to them, I got to teach them what they believe before I can teach them why it's wrong. You ever had to do that kind of thing? Well, I don't blame them. There is so much confusion and so much talk. I mean, I even seen a movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was sent to kill the Antichrist. Didn't you ever seen that movie? I can't remember what it's called. It is an action movie all the way to the end. And I even think Arnold says, "Get out," before it's over when he's talking to a demon. But it's out there, trust me. You can Google it and tell me what the title is. So here then, we just simply have a comparison. Now, many people ask me who the man of sin is, or the wild beast. There are a number of answers for this. I could go in tonight and give you an answer, but I don't know that it would satisfy you. I believe that it is Nero, but in order for it to be Nero, there has to be a number of things that are true. It has to be written before 96 AD. Well, by the way, I know a lot of people who think the man is Nero, Randy, who believe that it's written after 96 AD. Somehow they are able to go back, pick him up, but I believe that it has an early date and that it's going to happen early. I'm not certain what the date is. It could be up to 79. It could be up to 96. But whoever the man is, it happened or was a man that existed during that time. And so it's curious to me, we are not given the name in the Bible, but we are told that he's coming soon. As a matter of fact, these things are all going to happen very soon. And so if I was going to argue that it was Nero, Oh, I got one more. That they all might be condemned who believe not the truth. And if any man worship the beast in his image, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God. If I was going to argue for Nero, I would go to the passage there in Revelation where it speaks of his number, the number of the beast. I hear a lot about that. By the way, where is the number of the beast going to be on the body? The forehead. Where else? Here and on the forehead. So let me ask you, was there anyone in all of history who wore something symbolic on their forehead and on their wrists? You think of anybody? You might be what? The Jews did. In order to get in the temple, which this text is talking about. And so I just want you to keep that in mind. All right? Randy was always telling me, I think you believe that the book is pre-70 AD. I don't preach that. I'm not certain. I'm not dogmatic on that. But whenever I look at it under that lens, or we get out our decoder, that date answers all of these questions that I have. And so then they wear it there. If you break it down, you could see all of these letters here, the Rosh, the Mach, Uf, Nun, Vav, Resh, Nun, Tal, and the total. What I'm doing is every letter has an equivalent number. You take the letters, you take the numbers, it comes to 666. Those who are sticklers and say, well, you know, we're not worried about that. There's a variant of 616. And so this is what really cinches it for me. There's another number, 616 in other translations. But you take the Latin of 616 from Nero Caesar, you add up the letters, and guess what you get? 616. This is all called gematria. Nero 666. Okay? And so I think that it is the most obvious thing, if you're going to get out your decoder, that if it says that it is the number of a man, so you know if you got the man's name, you can get the number, you do the math, you get that man's name, not just in Latin, but also in Greek. Okay? So, but, there you go. What I wanted to tell you tonight was that there is no one Antichrist. And that if there is a man of sin, he seemingly is the wild beast in the book of Revelation. And the one thing that's going to happen that we all know is he is going to go to perdition. He is going to be destroyed. He will not win. He will not deceive the nations to the extent that they will overcome Jesus and his church. And we shouldn't be surprised, for he said in Matthew 16, the gates of hell shall not prevail against her, speaking of the church. So tonight we want to encourage you, if you have a need, to please come as we stand and as we sing.